Hello, my good ones. Right where you are looking at us from, and how old you are. We wish you a pleasant listening. Dank. On an October morning in 1993, Alona woke up from a strange silence in the apartment. My head was a little dizzy, and my back ached. In recent days, it has become increasingly difficult to sleep. The 36th week of pregnancy with triplets turned even a simple trip to the toilet into a real test. She listened. Usually, at this time, Mikhail was already thundering in the kitchen. Dishes preparing his signature strong coffee, which he drank exclusively from a blue ceramic cup with the inscription, "The Best." Husband in the world. Alina's gift for their 5th wedding anniversary. But today it was quiet. Too quiet. "Mish," she called, but there was no answer. With difficulty rising on the bed, Alona first. She lowered her legs to the floor, then, holding her huge belly with her hands, slowly stood up. At such moments, she felt like a clumsy ship that could hardly maneuver through a narrow strait. In the last month, it became more and more difficult to walk. The babies grew by leaps and bounds, and it seemed that they were competing to see who could kick their mother harder from the inside. Their 2-room apartment. The apartment, in a typical panel 9-story building on the outskirts of the Moscow region, was not spacious, but she and Mikhail put their souls into it. Bought on credit 4 years ago when he was promoted to head of department in construction. Company. Floral wallpaper in the bedroom, a brand new wall in the living room, a sharp TV, bought for the occasion in a thrift store. Crystal chandelier. The subject of special pride of Mikhail, who, at the risk of his life, hung it on the ceiling, standing on a rickety stool. And, of course, a small children's room, a former pantry, where now there were 3 identical cribs. Purchased at a discount in a newly opened children's world, they prepared for the arrival of babies as best they could. Misha. He even worked part-time on weekends as a private cab driver on his old 6 to save money for the first time. Holding onto the walls, Alina slowly left the bedroom. In the hallway, an empty coat rack caught her attention. Michael's jackets was gone, as well as his favorite autumn boots. Maybe you went out for bread. A thought flashed through my mind, but for some reason it immediately became restless. In the kitchen, flooded with morning light. Instead of her husband, she was greeted by a note pressed by an empty cup to the table, the same blue cup with the inscription, "The Best, Husband in the World." Alona took a piece of paper torn out of a notebook, which Mikhail always carried with him to work, and I read a few short lines written in a familiar handwriting with a characteristic lean to the left. "I'm sorry, I can't do that. It's not for me. Don't look for me. You can do it. You've always been stronger." Alina reread the short lines several times until the meaning finally reached her consciousness. Mikhail left. He just took it and left, leaving her alone. With 3 unborn children under her heart, she sank down on a stool, not believing her eyes. After all, they planned these children, or rather 1 child. But when Uzi showed the triplets, Mikhail only smiled and said, "So, we'll be a big family." He even suggested names. Alexander if there is a boy, and Daria, or Maria, if a girl. And now he just left them, with the first impulse. It was possible to call him, but the beeps in the receiver of the wall phone said that the number at work was turned off. "She is!" I tried to dial his friend Vitalik, but no one picked up the phone there either. As if in a fog, Alona reached the sideboards of the living room where their documents were kept. A savings book on which all their savings for the birth of children lay. Empty. The last operation was dated yesterday. Withdrawal of the entire amount, 34 rubles. A fortune in modern times, which they have been accumulating for 5 years. The joint bank account was also closed last night, about which a certificate that was right there in the folder with documents testified. As if Mikhail left her on purpose so that Alina would not. Had illusions. Everything swam before her eyes, and Alina sank to the floor by the sideboard, wrapping her arms around the huge belly, in which, as if sensing her condition, the children stirred restlessly. What to do now? This question was beating in my head like a captured bird. There is only change for bread and milk in the wallet. Maternity leave began 2 weeks ago. The next payment will be only in 2 weeks. And then what? What to live on with 3 newborns? How to pay for an apartment? And what if something goes wrong with childbirth? A whirlwind of panic swirled her mind. Alona was taken out by the doorbell, sharp, demanding. He made her shudder. Kaikak, getting up from the floor, and wiping away her tears, she trudged to the door. On the threshold stood a neighbor, Baba Nina, a 70-year-old widow from the first floor with a saucepan, from which there was an appetizing smell of freshly cooked borscht. I thought it's hard for you to cook with. Such and such a belly, the old woman muttered, adjusting a gray lock that had broken out from under her handkerchief, but stopped when she saw Elena's tear-stained face. What's wrong, dear? Mike left. He left completely and took the money. Elena's voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. A strange, broken voice. Babanina gasped, quickly went into the apartment, unceremoniously pushing Elena aside. She put the pan on the table and, returning, tightly hugged the young woman by the shoulders. The old woman smelled of homemade pies, lavender soap, and for some reason security. Oh, for him, she began, but restrained herself. Don't worry, it's not useful now. Sit down, eat, and then we'll decide what to do. From a hungry stomach it is bad to think, and you need to think well now. Over the meal, Elena came to her senses a little. Hot, rich borscht warmed not only the body, but also the soul. She told Babanina about the note and the empty passbook, and then she remembered that yesterday Mikhail returned from work, later than usual. It was almost 10 p.m., and usually. He came at 7. Alarmed, she asked what was wrong, but he waved it off. He was late, they say, with his colleagues, discussed the quarterly report. He lied shamelessly, Elena sobbed, and his jacket smelled of expensive perfume. I also thought maybe one of the employees was very perfumed, so it was left on him, and he, it turns out, was already with her then. With whom? With her, Granny Nina narrowed her eyes. I don't know, sighed Elena, but I have no doubt that she exists. Otherwise, why would he leave? We were waiting for these children, planned, prepared. She began to cry again, and Babanina just shook her head. Men, they're not all like that. Of course, but many. How hard it gets. So into the bushes, my late Petya. Heaven bless him. I also wanted to run away when our twins were born. I packed my suitcase and went to the station. And I'll take it ahead of schedule. He received a call from work, they said. My wife is in. Hospital, 2 are already asking to be born, so he went straight to the hospital with his suitcase. And so he remained. Elena is weak. I smiled through my tears. But Misha, it seems, will not return. And you don't need to. Granny Nina snorted. If he is such a weakling, then the children are better off without him. What will he teach them? How to escape in difficult times? She took Elena's hand. Let's call your sister. How is it? Marina, let her come. Help you figure it out. Otherwise I can't feed you slimmer on my pension, although I would like to. Elena nodded. Babanina was right. You need to call Marina. The older sister always knew what to do, but the phone in the apartment was disconnected for non-payment 3 days ago. Michael promised. Pay at the end of the week when they receive the bonus. Another lie, as Elena now understood. The phone does not work. Guilty, she admitted. Let's go to the machine gun. Let's go down, said Babanina decisively. I just have a 2-bedroom apartment, lying around. Going down the stairs was hard and scary. On the landing of the 3rd floor, Elena suddenly felt a sharp pain in the lower abdomen, but did not say anything to Babani, who walked briskly ahead, commenting on Mikhail's behavior with unflattering epithets. Leaving the entrance, they went to the phone booth on the corner of the house. Babanina insisted that Elena. I sat down on a bench next to the booth, and I went to call. The autumn wind ruffled the yellow leaves on the old poplar. Somewhere, music was playing in the distance. It seems that the group is a combination with their hit accountant. People wrapped in coats and jackets hurriedly walked by. An ordinary day in 1993, the day Elena's world collapsed. Babanina returned in 15 minutes and got through. Marina said that she would come as soon as she handed over the shift. She was on duty at the maternity hospital tonight. Elena gratefully nodded. Marina has been working as a nurse in maternity hospital number 5 for 8 years. It was there that Elena planned to give birth, under. His sister's supervision was calmer. When they returned to the apartment, Babanina forced Elena to lie down, and she herself. She began to run the kitchen, muttering something under her breath about irresponsible men and poor children. Marina arrived in 2 hours, disheveled, with eyes red from lack of sleep, but resolute and collected as always. After listening to her sister's confused story, she only shook her head. What a bastard! Forgive me, Lord! And then, stammering and looking at the floor, she gave out the news, from which Elena's legs buckled. I've seen them. Today at the airport, she was on duty at night, and in the morning a friend asked to meet her. She flew in from St. Petersburg. And I went. And there is your Misha with this one of his, with Christina. With what other Christina? Elena asked with her lips. with a new secretary from his office. A young girl, about 25 years old, not more, long-legged in a mini jacket despite the cold. I've heard for a month that she sticks to him, but I thought it was nonsense. Gossip. Marina nervously tugged at the edge of her sweater. They were sitting in a cafe, hugging. I thought maybe he has a business trip, and then I heard, as she says, at last we'll be free from all this, honey. You, me, and the Azure Sea. And then the landing was announced, for a flight to Istanbul. Elena felt something break inside. At that moment, she realized that Mikhail had planned everything in advance. It was not a spontaneous decision. He was preparing to abandon her, to abandon their unborn children. So, to Turkey. Rolled away, she grinned bitterly. I have always dreamed of going there. He said everything. Let's earn money, save up, go to the sea. They saved up, so he just went without me. She ran her hand over her stomach, where the babies began to move again, as if. Asked, What's going on, mother? Why are you so upset? Alina, are you? Don't worry so much, Marina said awkwardly. We'll come up with something. I'll talk to the head, maybe I'll be. 1.5 rates will be transferred, and we'll go to my mother in the village. She will give potatoes, blanks. But Elena was no longer listening. A sharp pain shot through her lower abdomen, and she bent in half, clutching at the edge of the table. What? Marina was alarmed. Contractions? Elena just nodded, unable to utter a word. 3 weeks ahead of schedule, as if the children felt that their world was destroyed before they were even born. Marina instantly turned from a confused nurse into a collected medical worker. So, now we will call an ambulance. Baba Nina, help pack the bag for the Ratam. And you breathe, as they taught you in the courses, remember? Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Waiting for an imminent one seemed like an eternity. The contractions became stronger and more frequent. When a white car with a red cross finally drove up to the entrance, Elena could hardly speak from the pain. Marina went with Sister to the maternity hospital. Next to the gurney, she held her hand tightly and whispered, Hold on, sister, you can do it. We will cope. I'm with you. I'm not going anywhere. In the admission department of the Radam, the usual fuss began. Inspection. Preparation for childbirth. The doctor, an elderly woman with a tired but kind face, quickly assessed the situation. You need a cesarean. Urgently. The water is receding, but the application is wrong. While Elena was being prepared for an emergency operation, she thought only about one thing through the fog of pain. I have to survive for the sake of them, only for their sake. My children will not be orphans. The operating room was flooded with a bright white light. Anesthetist said something in a soothing voice, but Alina did not hear the words. She thought about the fact that in the morning she had a complete family, a loving husband, plans for the future. And now she lies here, alone, devoted, without money, without prospects. And then, the first cry rang out, piercing, indignant, full of life. He was followed by the second and third. 3 small screams broke the silence of the operating room. 3 new lives came into this world, unaware that their father was already flying over the Black Sea, holding the hand of another woman. Or maybe he is already sunbathing on a Turkish beach, sipping a cocktail through a straw and planning a new life without obligations. Dalchika and the girl, the midwife said, showing Alina tiny red faces. Everyone is healthy, although a little premature. What would you call it? Asked one of the nurses. Alona looked at her children, at their wrinkled faces, tiny fingers clenched into fists, and suddenly she realized clearly, she can do it. She has to cope. She just has no choice. Timothy, Matvey, and Anna, she said firmly, in honor of my father, grandfather, and grandmother, real people who, they have never betrayed anyone. And only when the children were carried away and she was transported to the ward, Elena finally allowed herself. Cry. Tears flowed down her cheeks, dripping onto the pillow. Tears are not only grief and betrayal, but also relief. Her children were born. They are alive. They are healthy, which means that she will live for them. Alen, wake up. Timosha has a fever again. Her sister's voice pulled Elena out of a short, anxious sleep. She is! Opened my eyes and for a few seconds could not understand where the tiny room was. Wallpaper with lagging corners. A creaky clamshell. Oh yes, Marina's apartment in Staraya Khrushchevka. The clock on the wall showed 3 a.m., the third sleepless night in a row. I'm coming, Alona replied in a hoarse voice from fatigue, getting up from the cot with difficulty. In the corner of the room, there were 3 homemade cribs made of chipboard scraps by Marina's neighbor, Uncle Kolya, a former cabinet maker. In one of them, wrapped in a washed blanket, Timofey was crying. His face was burning, and his eyes were shining with heat. 39.3, Marina said quietly, handing her sister a thermometer. Call an ambulance. Alina shook her head. Today, they have already arrived. They said, it's common to catch a cold, paracetamol, and drink more. She took her son in her arms, pressing him. To his chest, a hot body. It's okay, my good, we can do it. Mom is nearby. Timofey, as if recognizing his mother's voice, calmed down a little. His crying turned into a quiet whimper. Side by side in cribs, Matvey and Anna stirred, awakened by the noise. I'll go and put tea, Marina sighed. We won't sleep anyway, 7 months have passed since the birth of the triplets. 7 months full of sleepless nights, baby crying, endless worries, and anguish as sharp as a knife blade. After the hospital, Alina and her children temporarily moved in with her sister. Returned to empty apartment full of memories of Mikhail, I had no strength. Yes, it seemed to be alone with 3 newborns. Impossible. Marina's 2-room Khrushchev apartment, located on the 5th floor without an elevator, has turned into a real children's room. Garden. Diapers were drying on all the radiators, baby bottles occupied the entire kitchen, and the smell of baby powder mixed with the smell of burnt porridge. Marina has always been an unimportant housewife. At first, it was planned that Alina would live with her sister, a couple of weeks until he gets stronger after cesarean, and then he returns to his apartment. But the weeks added up to month, and there was nowhere to return. For non-payment, the electricity was turned off, and then a notice came about the start of the eviction procedure for mortgage debts. It turned out that Mikhail did not just take the money and left. He left behind debts. For the last 3 months, he has not paid. Mortgage, accumulated debt for utilities did not repay the loan for the furniture wall. An apartment that they considered it their own, but in fact it turned out to be a debt pit. I talked to the bank, Marina said one day, returning from the work. They agreed to give a delay of 3 months for humanitarian reasons, but then either pay or move out. Alina only nodded, fighting in Anna's arms. She already knew that there would be nothing to pay with. Maternity benefits were barely covered. The cost of diapers and baby food. There was no talk of repaying the mortgage. Maybe I should write to my mother? Definitely, Marina suggested. Alina grimaced. He had a difficult relationship with his mother. After the death of her father, her mother quickly married a local farmer and moved to a village near Kaluga. Daughter's new husband. From his first marriage, and communication was reduced to rare New Year's cards. What will I write to her? Hello, Mom. My husband left me. I was left with 3 children. The money came. Alina smiled bitterly. She will answer that it is her own fault. I married a city dweller, so I got it. Marina did not argue. She knew perfectly well the character of their mother, a tough woman accustomed to hard work and deprivation, which considered sentiments to be a whim, and not luck, a punishment for some misdeeds. In addition, there were, the 90s, hard times for everyone. In the village, too, life was not easy. Many collective farms fell apart. There was no work. Salaries were delayed for months. It is unlikely that the mother could help them, even if she wanted to. A kettle whistled in the kitchen. Marina brought 2 cups of weak tea and a pack of Yubilenoy cookies. Little, a luxury that they sometimes allowed themselves in these difficult times. I thought about it, Marina began cautiously. Breaking cookies. Maybe you should temporarily register the children in the baby home? Only for a while, until you get back on your feet. They are there. Care, food, medical care will be provided. Alona abruptly put the cup on the table. Tea spilled out. On an oilcloth. Never. Do you hear? I will never leave them. Don't even mention it. I'm not always proposing, Marina said quietly. Only so that you can find a job, some kind of housing. And then you will take them. And who will guarantee that they will not be separated, will not be given to different families? There were tears in Elena's eyes. No, Marin. I'd rather stand on the porch with them than give them away. They are already growing up without a father. I will not allow them to think that their mother abandoned them. Marina, nodding understandingly, did not develop this topic further. Instead of, she said, tomorrow Viktor Ivanovich, our neighbor from the 4th floor, will come in. Do you remember I told you? He works in Sabes. He promised to advise on allowances and benefits for mothers. Loners are slimmer. Maybe they will advise something. Viktor Ivanovich turned out to be a short, balding man of about 50, with kind eyes and a soft smile. He came to me empty-handed. I brought a large package of children's things from my daughter, she has already grown up, and a box of chocolates. Bird's milk for new mothers. So that's it, he said, spreading some papers on the table. By law, you are entitled to an enhanced allowance like mothers with 3 children. Here's a list of documents that need to be collected. He handed Elena. Leaflet. In addition, there is a charitable foundation for motherhood. They provide assistance to families like yours. Food, clothes, sometimes even financial support. And housing? Elena asked. We will soon be evicted from the apartment for debts. Viktor Ivanovich rubbed the bridge of his nose. Housing is more complicated. The queue for social housing is long. They have been standing for years. But he hesitated. There is one possibility. In our area, a room in a dormitory has become free. 17 square meters, a shared kitchen, and a bathroom. Not a fountain, of course, but a roof. Over your head. I can petition for it to be provided to you as emergency housing. Alona looked at her with gratitude. At this stranger, who showed more concern than many acquaintances and even relatives. Thank you very much. Not at all, Viktor Ivanovich was embarrassed. I have a daughter myself. I think what I would feel if she was in such a situation. He coughed, hiding his embarrassment. In general, fill out these papers, and I will try to speed up the process. Thanks to the efforts of Viktor Ivanovich, a month later, Elena and the triplets moved to a tiny room inn. Dormitories for housing and communal services workers. The room was on the 2nd floor of an old 2-story building, with appealing. The paint on the walls and the creaky wooden floor. But it was their own housing without the risk of eviction and, most importantly, free. The neighbors turned out to be mainly single women and several families of guest workers from Tajikistan. At first, they looked at the young mother with 3 screaming babies, but over time they got used to it and even began to help. Some with food, some with children's things, and some just with a kind word. Alona especially became friends with Aunt Zina, an elderly cleaner from Czech who lived in the next room. She came to sit with the kids, while Alina ran around the authorities or to the store, and sometimes just made tea, with mint, and told stories from her youth. About the war, about the post-war devastation, about how she raised her son alone, after my husband died in the mine. Don't worry, daughter, she said, rocking Anna in her arms. You'll get out. I've never seen anything like this. After the war, children were raised in dugouts and nothing. They grew up as people. And you have such conditions and a roof over our heads and help from the state. When the triplets were 1 year old, Elena decided that it was time to go out. Work. Maternity benefits were scanty, and expenses were growing. Children demanded not only food and clothing, but also medicines, toys, and educational aids. But who would hire a young mother with 3 small children? And even without higher education. Alina managed to graduate only from a pedagogical college before getting married. First attempts to get a job, at least as a salesman or cashier, ended in failure. As soon as employers found out about Troina, immediately denied. They were afraid of frequent sick leaves and unforeseen time off. Cases helped me out. In the local newspaper, Alina came across an ad. A teacher in a private kindergarten is required. You can take it with a child. She called, told her about her situation, and, to her surprise, the head woman named Elena Pavlovna invited her for an interview. I have not 1 child, but 3, Elena honestly warned. They are 1 year and 2 months old. Triplets, Elena was surprised. Pavlovna. Well, come, let's see what can be done. A private kindergarten Solnishko was located in. Converted 3-room apartment on the 1st floor of a residential building. It was cozy, clean, and smelled of freshly baked buns. The group turned out to be small. A total of 8 children from 1 to 3 years old, with whom 2 teachers and a nanny studied. Elena Pavlovna, full, an energetic woman in her 40s, listened attentively to Elena's story. I see you really need this. Work, she said after a pause. And, judging by your diploma, you are a good specialist. But 3 children is difficult. Elena was already preparing for a refusal, but Elena Pavlovna suddenly smiled. You know what? Let's try. You will work in the younger group, and your kids will attend the kindergarten for free. Honestly, I lack a good educator with a specialized education. Most applicants are random, people who, I just need money. But how confused was Elena? 3 children. This is an additional burden. So, we will increase the group to 11 children. Elena Pavlovna shrugged her shoulders. You are a teacher, I am a teacher. We must cope. In addition, she lowered her voice, I also have 3 children. True, the age is not triplets, but I know how it feels. Torn between. Work and children. So Elena became a teacher in a private kindergarten. The salary was not high, but the opportunity to enroll children in kindergarten for free compensated for the lack of money. In addition, Elena Pavlovna turned out to be an understanding boss. She let them go early if the children were sick. Sometimes she threw the nursery, the clothes from which her children grew up. And for the new year, she always gave impressive food packages. Life gradually entered a relatively calm channel. The triplets grew healthy and active. Despite the difficult start, Timofey turned out to be thoughtful and calm. Could spend hours collecting blocks or looking at pictures in books. Matvey, on the contrary, was not a fidget. He was the first to learn to walk. He was the first to run away from his mother on walks, the first to climb trees in the yard. And Anna, the only one. Girl, grew up a real little mistress. She loved to help her mother with the dishes. She neatly folded her toys and constantly raised her brothers. Alina never ceased to be amazed at how different her children had grown up, despite the same genes and conditions. Sometimes, looking at them, she tried to find Mikhail's features, but she saw only herself, her eyes, her nose, her smile. It was as if nature had decided to erase all traces of the traitor. There was no news of Michael. Sometimes Elena imagined how he lived somewhere in Turkey. Perhaps he has already acquired a new family, perhaps even new children. It became bitter, but it no longer hurt. Time heals even the deepest wounds. When the children were 3 years old, a ray of hope appeared in Elena's life. Elena Pavlovna offered her to take courses, advanced training at the expense of kindergarten. You are a promising teacher, she said. And with a diploma of higher education, you can apply for the position of a senior educator. This is the salary. Higher, and the possibilities are wider. Elena hesitated. Studying meant even less time with the children, but the prospect of a more stable future outweighed it. I can do it, she said to herself, filling out the documents for admission to the Pedagogical Institute for Correspondence Studies. I always cope. In the evening of the same day, as she put the children to bed in their tiny dormitory room, she told them a fairy tale about 3 kittens who lost their mother, but found each other and overcame all difficulties together. When the children fell asleep, Elena. I looked at their serene faces for a long time in the dim light of the night-night. We can handle it too, she whispered, kissing each on the forehead. We are already coping. Mom, I'm not going to this stupid music room. 10-year-old Anna crossed, her arms over her chest, and stubbornly plucked out her lower lip. I can't stand the piano. Why can Timofey play chess? Matvey goes to football, and I have to spend time playing games. Alina sighed, tired, rubbing her temples. After a 10-hour shift in kindergarten, a quick dinner and laundry, the conversation about music school was the last thing she wanted to. Anya, we agreed. Each of you chose classes to your liking, and you yourself wanted to play music. It was in the 1st grade, Anna rolled her eyes. She was small and stupid. And now, of course, you are big and wise, Alina smiled, sitting down next to her daughter on an old sofa. Listen to your talent for music. This is a gift. You have excellent hearing. Even the teacher says that you can enter a music school after school. That's it, Anna picked up. I want to be like you, an educator or a teacher. They are a pianist. There was a cautious knock on the door, and Timofey, a thin boy with thick glasses, peeped into the room. Glass. Mom, I solved all the problems. Can I read it now? Uncle Kolya gave me an interesting book about space. Uncle Kolya. This is how the triplets called Nikolai Petrovich, an elderly neighbor in the dormitory, a former physics teacher who took patronage of Timofey, noticing the boy's ability for exact sciences. Of course, dear, but not for long, soon to sleep. Timothy nodded and disappeared behind the door. Here, Anna exclaimed triumphantly. Timka, you allow him to do what he wants. Timothy has fulfilled all his duties, Elena patiently explained. Are you trying to get away from your own? On this. At that moment, the front door opened with a crash, and Matvey, out of breath, burst into the room with his hair tousled and dirty knees. Mom, we won 42 and I scored 2 goals. He jumped, imitating a headbutt. The coach said that next year I would definitely pass the selection for a sports school. Alina smiled, looking at the flushed. The face of my son is delighted. That's wonderful, Matvey. I'm proud of you. And now let's go to the bathroom. You're all dirty. Always the same, and... The same, Matvey muttered, but obediently went to wash. Alina looked at her daughter and said softly, See, each of you. Found what he liked. Let's make a deal. You will finish this school year in the music school, and in the summer we will decide whether to continue or not. Goes. Anna, after thinking, reluctantly, nodded. Okay, but only until summer. When the children finally lay down, Alina sank into an old chair by the window. Only. A place in a cramped dormitory room where she could be in relative privacy. Lights were burning outside the window. Residential area. Somewhere in the distance, cars were honking back from the last trains. It's amazing how quickly. Time flies. It seems that only yesterday she was holding 3 tiny babies in her arms, and today they are already school children, each with his own character, interests, dreams. 7 years ago, when the triplets were 3 years old, there were big changes. Elena Pavlovna, the owner of the private kindergarten where Elena worked, decided to expand the business and opened another kindergarten and then an elementary school. Elena, who by that time had received a diploma of higher pedagogical education, became head of the new kindergarten. This meant not only a higher salary, but also a service apartment, a small 2-room apartment inn. A new building on the outskirts of the city. After 7 years in the dormitory, moving to my own home seemed like a real miracle. Tup, Nina, with whom Alina had become friends in the dormitory, moved in with them and now lived in a small room, which, initially, it was planned to make a nursery for boys, and the children were accommodated in a large room. The girl behind the screen, boys on a bunk bed. It was cramped, but still better than in the dormitory. And most importantly, it was their home. No one could evict them, no one knocked on the wall when the children were too noisy, no one had to stand in the queues for a shared bathroom. Life was gradually getting better. The increase meant not only better housing conditions, but also the opportunity to give more to children. Circles, sections, books, sometimes even trips to the sea as part of kindergarten groups, which were organized by Elena Pavlovna. Of course, Alina still saved on everything. She bought clothes at the market, often in Seca Contiongda, cooked simple dishes, rarely allowed herself new things. But the main thing is that the children did not feel deprived. They had everything they needed to develop and grow. Quietly at the door, knocked, and Aunt Zina, an elderly neighbor who had been helping Alina with the children since we moved to a new apartment. Are you still awake, Alyanushka? I've made some mint tea here. Sit. Elena gratefully nodded. Gatherings with Aunt Zina in the kitchen have become a kind of ritual. An opportunity to speak out, share anxieties and joys, hear the wise advice of a person who has seen in life. The small kitchen smelled of freshly brewed mint and homemade biscuits, which Aunt Zina managed to make. Oven, despite the fact that his right arm was partially paralyzed after a stroke. Is Anka rebelling again? Understanding, the old woman asked, pouring tea into cups. She doesn't want to go to the music room anymore, sighed Alina. And her. I understand, to be honest. This is an additional workload, and she already has a tight schedule. School English. Now she has also signed up for a theater club. The artist is growing, Aunt Zina nodded, in whom only such a character. Fighting? You've always been quieter, according to Marina. Elena shrugged her shoulders. Maybe in my grandfather? Dad told me that his father was so decisive, straightforward. She was silent for a moment. Sometimes I think maybe there is something of Mikhail in them. After all, genes. Aunt Zina snorted. What good could there be from this of yours? She always avoided calling Michael by his first name, as if it were, with a curse. Only bad things could be transmitted. And your children are golden, so everything is good. From you. Alina smiled weakly. For 10 years, she has almost forgotten Mikhail's face. Sometimes, looking at old photos that I kept not out of sentimentality, but to show the children if they asked. About her father, she noted with surprise how his features had faded from her memory. Only the sensations were remembered. The warmth of his hands, the smell of cologne, the sound of laughter. But they also became more and more blurred, as if they belonged to an unreal person, to a character from a book read a long time ago. By the way, Marisha called today, interrupted her, reflection of Aunt Zina. She said that she would come for the May holidays. Maybe she would take the children with her to the dacha for a couple of days so that you could rest. Marina, Alina's sister, now lived in Tver, married a doctor from a local hospital and moved in with him. They saw each other rarely, but they did not lose contact. Marina always tried to help. Either he would bring gifts to the children, or he would help Alina to the sanatorium with a voucher through the trade union. That would be great. Alina nodded. Matvey's going to the sports camp anyway, and Timofey and Anna could go to Marina. I would. At least she put the apartment in order and just slept well. That's what we'll do, Aunt Zena said decisively, and I will remain you. Pickle the cucumbers as last year. Aunt Zena was the only person next to whom Alina could afford to be weak. With all the other children, colleagues, acquaintances, she always behaved confidently, hiding her fatigue and anxiety about the smile and business tone. But sometimes, on such quiet evenings, she allowed herself to relax and confess, as she sometimes. It can be hard and lonely. Do you know Zinaida Petrovna? Alina said quietly. Sometimes I think maybe I should have. Still try to arrange your personal life? The children are growing up. Soon they will not have time for me, and I will remain alone. Aunt Zena. I looked at her carefully. Were there no options? Alina shrugged her shoulders. Sergei from the neighboring. He took care of the kindergarten for more than 1 year. And Viktor Ivanovich, who helped us with the room, also hinted that he was not averse to closer ones. Relations. But she fell silent, choosing the words. I was always afraid that suddenly the children would not be accepted, or the children would not accept them, or the story with Mikhail would repeat itself. Nonsense, Aunt Zena cut off. Not all men are like that. My Petya, the earth is down to him. Until his death, he was to me. Support, and the fact that your first husband turned out to be a pig does not mean that everyone else is the same. Maybe you. Right, sighed Alina. But now it's too late to think about it. Who needs me at 36, with 3 teenage children and an elderly? A relative in your arms. Do you consider me a burden? Aunt Zena squinted slyly. What are you doing? I was alarmed. Alina. You are like a native to us. Children adore you. I'm like without hands. The same. The old woman nodded with satisfaction. And, as for it's too late. So, this is nonsense. I got married for the second time at 40 after the war. And nothing. There were 15 years of happiness with Petya. She sighed. It's a pity that God did not give children. The conversation was interrupted by a phone call. Alina stood up, wondering who could. Call so late. Hello, she said, picking up the phone. Alina Pavlovna's excited voice rang out. Sorry for the late call, but I just heard the news and couldn't help but share. What's wrong? Do you remember Victor, our investor? He had just returned from America and announced that he had found partners to expand the network. We will. Open 5 more kindergartens and 2 schools. And guess who I want to see as the principal of the new elementary school? She gasped at me. Alina. Namely. Alina Pavlovna's voice sounded undisguised enthusiasm. You're the perfect candidate. With the highest pedagogical education, managerial experience, and impeccable reputation. The salary will be twice as high as the current one. And also a service car with a driver. Well, do you agree? Alina could not believe it. To their ears. The school principal, she with her biography of a single mother from the dormitory. I don't know what to say, she muttered. This is such a responsibility. Think about it until tomorrow, said Alina Pavlovna. But mind you, I don't want to hear a refusal. You deserve this chance. Pudding. Alina returned to the kitchen with a stunned expression on her face. What happened? Asked Aunt Zena. You don't have a face. Me? They want to make me the director of a new school. Still not believing, Alina muttered. With a salary twice as much and a company car. Aunt Zena slapped her palm on the table. Do you see? Are you late? It's late. Life is just beginning. She raised her cup of tea. Let's drink to your success. Alyanushka, you deserve it like no one else. That night, Alina could not sleep for a long time. She was lying on the sofa in the living room, his room. She gave in to the children when they grew up and thought about the turn her life had made. From the abandoned wife with 3 newborn children to the director of a private school, a path that 10 years ago would have seemed unthinkable to her. She was thinking about Michael. I wonder how his life turned out. Is he happy? Does he sometimes remember the children he left without even seeing them? Does he know that he has 2 sons and a daughter? Smart, talented, beautiful. Strangely, there was no more bitterness in her heart, only a slight sadness and a kind of gratitude to fate. After all, if Mikhail did not leave then, she might have remained in the shadow of her husband without revealing her potential, without becoming that person. Which it is now. In the morning, Alina was woken up by a phone call. Sleepily fumbling for the receiver, she heard an unfamiliar, a man's voice. Hello, is this the Savyev's apartment? No, you are mistaken. Alina answered automatically, about to hang up. Wait, cried the voice. I'm looking for Elena. Elena! who was once married to Mikhail Savliev. Elena froze, squeezing the receiver. My heart pounded like, "Madwoman, who are you?" she asked hoarsely. "My name is Igor," the voice answered. "I am Michael's friend. More precisely, the past. I need to talk to you urgently. This applies to your children. What's wrong with them?" Elena was scared. "Not on the phone," Igor said. "Can I come to you? This is really important." Alona named. Address, mechanically noting how strange it was to pronounce aloud a surname that she had long ago changed back to her maiden name, and almost forgot. She hung up the phone and sat down on the edge of the couch, feeling her hands tremble. After 10 years of silence, the past suddenly reminded me of self. And, judging by the tone of this Igor, the news was not pleasant. Igor turned out to be a tall, thin man of years, sop, with receding hairline and attentive gray eyes. He arrived exactly at the appointed time, at noon, when the children were in school, and Anzina went to the clinic for a routine examination. Pass. Elena led the guest to the kitchen. Only. A place in a small apartment where you could talk without prying ears. Will you have tea? Thank you. Igor nodded, awkwardly sitting down on the edge of his chair. It was obvious that he was uncomfortable. While Elena was making tea, she briefly looked at the guest. Nothing familiar. She was sure that she had never met this man before. "You said that you were a friend of Mikhail," she began, placing a cup in front of him. "But I don't remember you. We met afterward, after he left you," he explained. Igor, wrapping his long fingers around the cup as if trying to warm up. "I worked in a Russian-Turkish construction company." Mikhail settled down. "To us as an interpreter." Elena raised her eyebrows in surprise. "Translator." But he did not know Turkish. He learned quickly. Igor shrugged his shoulders. "In 6 months I mastered the basic level, and then practice." He fell silent, noticing the expression. Elena's face. "Sorry, you are probably not interested in these details." "Why?" Elena said dryly. "It is interesting to find out what." "My ex-husband was engaged while I was trying to survive with 3 newborn children." Igor lowered his eyes. "I understand your feelings, and believe me, I am not going to justify Mikhail. What he did to you and the children is unforgivable." "Then why are you here?" Elena asked directly. "You said this applies to my children. What exactly?" Igor took a deep breath, as if gathering his courage. "Mikhail died a month ago. Pancreatic cancer is the last stage. He was ill for about a year." Elena froze. A strange feeling came over her. Not grief, not relief, but some kind of emptiness, as if she had been informed about the death of a distant acquaintance whom she had not seen for a long time. "I'm sorry," she said at last, "but what does my children have to do with it?" "The thing is," Igor nervously drummed his fingers on the table, "that shortly before his death, Michael made a will. He left all his possessions to your children and asked me to find you and convey it." He took an envelope from the inside pocket of his jacket and placed it on the table. "Here are the documents for an apartment in center of Moscow, a bank account and a share in a business, a chain of Turkish restaurants. Everything is registered for 3 children in equal shares, on the condition that they enter into the rights of repetition upon reaching the age of 18. Elena looked at the envelope incredulously. "Don't understand. Mikhail left us, taking all the money, and now he leaves an inheritance to the children." "Why?" Igor was silent for a moment, as if choosing words. "Mikhail has changed a lot over the years, especially after his illness. He talked a lot about you and the children, about how he regrets his action. He took another smaller envelope from his pocket. This is a letter. He wrote it. Before his death, he asked me to pass it on to you personally." Elena took the envelope but did not open it. Something told her that. "It is better to read the contents privately." "Were you with him to the end?" she asked. Igor nodded. "Yes. In recent months I have been taking care of him. He had no family. Or rather," he stammered, "there was a second wife, Christina, the same one with whom he left you. But I left when he got sick. She said that she did not sign up for the role of a nurse. You reap what you sow, she thought." Elena, but she didn't say anything out loud. "And the children?" she asked. "He had other children." "No," he shook his head. "Igor, he and Christina lived together for almost 7 years, but did not have children. Then she went to some businessman, Mikhail. The breakup was hard, and a year later he met Natalia, an artist from Russia, who came to Istanbul for an exhibition. They got married, but he fell silent. But, Elena asked, Natalia died 3 years ago. Car crash. After that, Mikhail gave up a lot, started drinking, and abandoned his business. I helped him to pull himself together, and for a while it seemed that he was going to squirm, and then they diagnosed cancer. Elena felt an unexpected pang of compassion. Despite everything that Mikhail, she could not rejoice in his suffering. He often talked about children, Igor continued. He asked them what they looked, what they were interested in. I wanted to see them at least from afar, but I was afraid that you would not allow them. He was right, Elena said firmly. I wouldn't. Allowed him to appear in their lives, only to disappear again. I understand. Igor nodded, and he also understood, so he didn't try to contact you before. But before he died, he sighed. You know, dying people often rethink their lives. Mikhail was no exception. He was very sorry for leaving you and the children. It is a pity that this realization came to him only on his deathbed. Bitterly. Elena noticed. Yes, Igor just agreed. It was a pity that he finished his tea and got up. I fulfilled Mikhail's request. Now it's up to you to decide whether to tell the children about the inheritance, whether to show them the father's letter. I'll keep my business card, if you have questions or you need help with paperwork. Call at any time. When Igor left Alona, sitting in the kitchen looking at the 2 envelopes in front of her, a large one with documents confirming that the children are now the owners of property, the value of which she was even afraid to imagine, and the little one with the last, the words of the man who had once broken her heart. At last she made up her mind and opened the letter. Alina, when will you be? To read these lines, I will no longer be alive. It began. The handwriting was familiar, with a characteristic tilt to the left, but the letters looked uneven, trembling. Apparently, Mikhail wrote when he was already very weak. I know that there are no words that can atone for what I did. I left you at the most difficult moment, leaving you alone with the responsibility we had to divide. I was young, stupid, and selfish. I was afraid of responsibility and ran away like the last coward. I won't tell you about my life. It does not have values. I will only say that everything I have achieved has not brought me happiness. I lost the most valuable thing I had, you and our children. I know I have no right to ask for forgiveness, but I want you to know. There was not a day when I did not. I thought about you. I had no idea how our children grow up without reprimanding for their act. The property that I leave to my children is not an attempt to buy off. That's the only thing I can do for them. You are welcome. Do not refuse the inheritance out of pride. This is rightfully theirs. I often imagined how I could. Our life would turn out if I found the strength to stay. If I could see how our children grow, how the first ones do. Steps say the first words. This is the biggest regret of my life. Forgive me if you can, and please, tell the children that their father loved them, even if he was unworthy of the title. Mikhail. Elena put down the letter. I feel tears rolling down her cheeks. Strange, she thought that she had long ago cried all the tears for. To this man, the words written by the dying man's hand awakened something deep inside. Not love, no, but something like forgiveness. She recalled their first meeting at a disco in the House of Culture. Mikhail was then a student of the Faculty of Linguistics, tall, self-confident, with a shock of curly hair and a dazzling smile. He invited her to a slow dance, and she immediately felt, this is fate. They were happy for 5 years. They hitchhiked, made plans, dreamed of a big house and children. Mikhail got a job in a construction company as a translator from English, began to earn good money. They took out a mortgage, built a nest, and then Elena became pregnant. When Uzi showed a triple, Mikhail did not look frightened. On the contrary, he seemed joyful, excited. Imagine, 3 at once. We will immediately become a large family, he said, hugging her. What happened then? When did fear get the better of love? When did he decide to flee? These questions tormented Elena for many years. Now, looking at the trembling lines of the last letter, she knew she would never get answers. Perhaps Michael himself did not know why he did what he did. The sound of the front door opening pulled Elena out of her thoughts. She quickly wiped away her tears and put the letter in her pocket. Robe, Mom, we're home. Anna's sonorous voice rang out. 3 pairs of legs stomped down the corridor, and triplets appeared in the kitchen, flushed from the frost with their backpacks behind shoulders. Hello, dear, Elena smiled, hugging the children. How's the school? It's fine, Matvey shrugged his shoulders. What's for lunch? Borscht and cutlets, Elena replied. Wash your hands and sit down at the table. While the children were having lunch, Elena stole a glance at their faces, trying to find Mikhail's features. Timofey, with his thoughtful look and quiet smile. No, he is all like her father. Matvey is energetic and impulsive. Could be. Something from my grandfather on Mikhail's side. Anna with her stubborn chin and piercing gaze. Exactly her. Elena's copy. Mom. And what kind of uncle came to you? Suddenly Matvey asked, picking up the remains of borscht with bread. We saw him from the window when we entered the yard. Elena froze. What uncle? Well, so tall in a gray coat, Matvey explained. Is he from your school? No, Elena answered slowly. This is a familiar one. At work, she was not ready to tell the children the truth now. First, you need to think about everything, weigh everything. How they react to the news of the death of a father they never knew? How will they react to an unexpected inheritance will not affect? Is there money for their character, for their attitude to life? And when will we go to Aunt Marina's dacha? Anna asked, changing the subject. She is. She promised to teach me how to bake pies with apples. To May, answered Elena, grateful for the change of topic. If. Of course you will correct all the deuces before the end of the quarter, she added, looking meaningfully at Matvey. Let me fix this physics, he muttered. Come to think of it, I failed the test once. After lunch, the children went about their business. Timofey sat down to his lessons, Matvey rushed off to training, and Anna locked herself in. In the bathroom, experimenting with a new hairstyle, Elena was finally able to calmly think about the situation. It was necessary to tell children about their father. They had the right to know. But how? When? And most importantly, what exactly? So far, she had answered their questions about her father. Evasively. He went far away. We parted before you were born. Sometimes it happens. People cannot live together. The children seemed to accept these explanations, at least outwardly. But what did they really feel? About what? Thinking, seeing the complete families of their classmates? Aunt Zina returned from the clinic in high spirits. Can you imagine, Alyonushka? The doctor said that I was in great shape for my age. Pressure like that of an astronaut, the heart works like clockwork. She noticed Elena's expression. Did something happen? Alona nodded, and, making sure that the children did not hear, told about Igor's visit, about the inheritance and the letter. Aunt Zina listened attentively, without interrupting. Well, she said at last least that one of yours had a conscience. Take care of the children, at least after death. But how can I tell them about it? Asked Elena helplessly. They hardly asked about their father in recent years. Maybe they don't care anymore. Without deceiving yourself, dear, said Aunt Zina softly. Children never have everything. Equally, they just stopped asking because they saw how painful it was for you to talk about it. Elena sighed. You're right, as always, but I'm afraid. I'm afraid that they will begin to idealize him or, on the contrary, hate him. Or they will think that he is trying to pay off, and you tell them the truth. Aunt Zina shrugged her shoulders. All without embellishment. They're old enough to understand. Mikhail made a mistake for which he paid all his life. He wasn't a saint, but he wasn't a monster either. Just a person who made the wrong choice and then regretted it. When did you manage to become so wise? Weakly. Alina smiled. When she lived to be 78 years old, Aunt Zina grinned. By this age, you either become wiser or you become completely stupid. I was lucky with the first option. All evening, Alina could not find a place for herself. I walked around the apartment, started things and dropped them, turned on the TV, and immediately turned it off. The children noticed her condition, but they wrote it off as fatigue after a working day. Before going to bed, Elena looked into the room to the children. They were already lying on their own. Beds. Timothy with a book, Matvey with a magazine about football. Anna braiding her pigtail for the night. Guys, she said quietly. Alina sitting down on the edge of Timothy's bed. Tomorrow is Saturday, and I would like to talk to you about something important. After breakfast, it is good. The children looked at each other. Such a serious tone was rare for their usually calm and smiling mother. Has something happened? Asked Timothy anxiously. Are you sick? Anna added, frightened. Are you all right? Frowned Matvey. I'm fine, Alina hastened to reassure them. It's just that there is news that concerns all of us, but about this. Tomorrow. And now good night, my beloved. She kissed each of the children and left the room, feeling them. Puzzled looks. At night, Alina almost did not sleep, tossing and turning on the sofa, going through in her mind the options for the upcoming conversation. She remembered the past, thought about how her life had changed over these 10 years. I reread Michael's letter. trying to understand whether his repentance is sincere or is an attempt to clear his conscience at the last moment. In the morning of it dawned. She figured out how to talk to the children, without drama, without unnecessary emotions, but with respect for their feelings and their right to know the truth about their origins. Waking up earlier than usual, Alina prepared a special Saturday breakfast, pancakes with jam, which children loved so much. She set the table, took out a family album with photos, and waited. When her small but such a friendly family wakes up. Saturday morning turned out to be surprisingly sunny for April. Rays made their way through the tulle curtains, creating a bizarre pattern on the kitchen table. Alina flipped through the pages for the umpteenth time. Family album, stopping at photographs taken before the birth of triplets. Here she is Mikhail in the background. Kremlin, young, happy holding hands. And here they are at the dasha of friends grilling kebabs. Mikhail in an apron with the inscription Shifkuk laughs, hugging her shoulders. Strangely, the face that had once been dearer to her than anything else in the world now seemed like the face of a stranger. As if I looked at old films with an actor who is long gone out of fashion. Aunt Zena was the first to appear in the kitchen, as always, early rising. Silently, she put the kettle on, pressed Alina's shoulder in silent support, and began to cut bread for toast. "Have you decided what to say?" she asked quietly. Alina nodded. Just the truth, without embellishment, but also without unnecessary details. Soon the sound of bare feet was heard in the corridor end. In the kitchen, a sleepy Matvey appeared in a stretched t-shirt with the Spartak logo. Pancakes, he perked up, smelling. Smell, class. And what kind of holiday? No holiday, Alina smiled. I just wanted to pamper my beloved children. And where are Timka and Anka? They are still sleeping. Matvey plopped down on a chair and reached for the top pancake from the hill. I am not sleeping, replied Timothy, appearing in the doorway. In. Unlike his brother, he was already fully dressed and coiffed. I finished reading the book. On Saturday morning, early in the morning, Matvey rolled his eyes. You're definitely wrong. It's just that some people have interests besides football and computer games, Timothy retorted, sitting down at the table. Well, that's enough, Alina intervened, stopping the beginning of the squabble. Where is Anna? In the bathroom. Timofey spread the pancake with jam. New hairstyle. Tries. Coming out soon. Anna appeared 10 minutes later with her hair braided in a complex braid and with light makeup. New. A hobby that Alina allowed only on weekends. Good morning, she said cheerfully, taking their place behind. Desk. Wow, pancakes, what do we celebrate? So far nothing, Alina replied. But I have important news that concerns all of us. The children fell silent, looking at their mother with expectation and slight anxiety. Remember, yesterday you asked about a person who... Did you come to us? It was Igor, a friend of your father. At the table reigned. Complete silence. The topic of the father has always been an unspoken taboo in their family. The children, of course, knew that somewhere they had. The father who left them before birth but did not know the details. Alina spared them, not telling them about the betrayal, about how she was left without money on the slimmer days. Our father? Timothy asked, nervously adjusting his glasses. And what did he need? He brought the news, Anil sighed. Your father Mikhail died a month ago of cancer. The children were silent, digesting the information. Their faces reflected a complex range of emotions, surprise, confusion, and something else that Alina could not accurately define. And that's it, finally, Matvey asked. He just came to say that some stranger to us had died. Not really, I shook it, with Alina's head. Igor also handed over the documents. Your father left you an inheritance, quite a significant one. An apartment in the center of Moscow, a bank account, and a share in a business. Anna asked us in surprise. But why? AKA, he has never been interested in us, he has never even seen us. Alina put down her fork, realizing that the moment had come, which she had avoided for so long. Children, I think it's time to tell you the whole story from the beginning. And she told how she met Mikhail at a student disco, how they fell in love, got married, built plans, how happy they were to learn about the pregnancy, although they did not expect triplets. About how one morning she woke up to find only a short note and an empty passbook. She did not embellish, and did not exaggerate, just stated the facts, moving to Marina, looking for a job, difficult first years in the dormitory, and how life gradually began to improve. I've never told you anything bad about your father, she finished. I didn't want you to grow up with the feeling that you abandoned or did not want to because it is not true. Yes, your father made a mistake, an unforgivable mistake, but it's not. It means that he did not love you. He was just scared. Scared of what? Matvey frowned. Responsibility for the fact that we will have to work to feed us. Probably, Alina nodded. Fear can push people to do strange things, especially if a person is not ready for it. And now then, he had decided to pay off. There was resentment in Anna's voice, like, here's money for you, and we're in the calculation. I do not know what drove him, Alina answered honestly, but he left a letter for me, and I think you should read it. She is. She took a crumpled envelope out of her dressing gown pocket and handed it to Timofey. As the eldest of the triplets, while the children took turns reading. Timofey frowned. Matvey curled his lips, as if restraining his emotions. Anna did not, hid the tears running down her cheeks. Mom, Timofey said quietly, having finished reading. You forgave him. Did she forgive Mikhail? For years of loneliness, for hard work, for sleepless nights with 3 crying babies, for humiliation when I had to ask for help from neighbors, for fear of the future. You know, she began slowly, anger and resentment. This is a heavy cargo. They take away energy that can be spent on something good. I carried this resentment in myself for a long time, but then I realized what was the point. It won't bring back the past, will not change what happened, but it can poison the present. That is, you forgave him, Timofey insisted. I let go of this pain, Alina replied. And in this sense, yes, she forgave her, but did not forget. And I will never forget. And what should we do with this inheritance? Matvey asked. Can he refuse? We are already living well. It's up to you to decide, said Alina. But I believe that you have every right to it. After all, he was your father, albeit not a very good one. And this may be his way of somehow making amends. It means that we are rich, Anna asked suddenly, and notes of childish delight slipped into her voice. I don't think you should take this way, Alina smiled softly. Money comes and goes. Real wealth. This is different. This is something that no one can take away from you. Your knowledge, your talents, your kindness, your ability to love. Aunt Zena, who had been silently watching the conversation all this time, nodded approvingly. But yes, financially you are now. Are provided, Alina added. When you turn 18, you will be able to dispose of this inheritance in your own way. Discretion, and until then, I will manage it as your legal representative. Can we see this apartment? Matvey asked. But which? Did he leave it to us? Of course, Alina nodded. We can go even today, if you want. Igor left the keys. Want? The children answered in unison. The apartment turned out to be in an old house on Chisty Prudi, spacious, 3-room, with high ceilings, stucco molding, and huge windows. It is tastefully furnished, but without a face. Expensive furniture, abstract paintings on the walls, sterile cleanliness, as if no one lived here. The children walked from room to room, carefully, as if afraid of touching or breaking something. They didn't look like happy heirs at all, but rather like visitors to the museum, where you can look but not touch the exhibits. It's beautiful here, Anna said uncertainly, but it's kind of cold. It's uncomfortable, Timofey agreed. Doesn't look like home. But the metro is nearby, said the practical Matvey, and the center is 10 minutes away. Alina watched the children, feeling a strange mixture of emotions. This luxurious apartment, which probably cost the whole, conditions so contrasted with their modest housing. Still, she felt no envy or regret. Her house, though small and cramped, was filled with love, laughter, and life. Here, there was only emptiness. Bedroom. On the bedside table, she noticed a photograph in a frame. Coming closer, I was surprised to recognize myself. Young, pregnant, smiling at the camera. The photo was taken a month before the birth of the triplets. He kept our photos. All this time flashed through my head. This discovery touched something in her soul. Not love, no, but something like compassion. Mom, look, Timofey called from the next room. There's a whole library and so many books on physics and mathematics, and there is a sports corner here, Matvey's voice was heard. Punching bag, dumbbells. Mom, there's a piano here, a real concert theater, Anna shouted enthusiastically. Alina slowly walked around the apartment and realized that these rooms were decorated for children, for teenagers interested in science, sports, and music. It was as if Mikhail was watching their lives from afar, knowing about their hobbies and was preparing to accept them here someday, but he did not have time. What are we going to do with this apartment? She asked the children when they were ready for the drawing room. We can rent it out, and with the proceeds to pay for your education. Or maybe, Timothy began uncertainly, maybe we should move here. There's a lot more space here. Everyone will have own room. Alina looked at her son in surprise. Do you want to live here? I don't know. Timofey shrugged his shoulders. Just thought that this is logical. Why pay for a rented apartment if you have your own? But our apartment is not rented, Alina reminded. It is official from my work. And if you get fired? Practical Matvey asked. Or the school closes then? I will have to look for another place to live. Alina nodded. But until this happens, we can live there and rent out this apartment. And what about Aunt Zina? Anna asked. There's a room for her here. Of course, Alina smiled. There is enough space for all. But let's not rush into decisions. Let's think about everything with a fresh head. In the evening, when the children are already at home, went to bed, Alona read Mikhail's letter again. Now, knowing about the apartment, about the rooms furnished with the interests of the children, she took a new view of his words about repentance and love. Perhaps he really regretted, perhaps really followed their lives from afar, not daring to intervene, and maybe at the end of his life, he realized that he had made the biggest mistake, losing the most valuable thing he had, his family. The next day, Alina called Igor. I have a question, she said without preamble. Mikhail, he knew what the children were interested in. Where in an apartment with books on physics, a sports corner, a piano. He hired a private detective. After a pause, Igor answered, years ago. Not for surveillance, but to find out how you live, whether everything is all right with you. The detective took photos. Children collected information about their school, hobbies. Mikhail wanted to know that they were all right. Why didn't he come himself? There was no accusation in Alina's voice, only fatigue. Why didn't he try to establish contact? I was afraid, Igor replied simply. I was afraid that you would drive him away, that the children would not want to know him. What do you say to them? What a scoundrel he is, and they will hate him. I have never said bad things to the children about their father, Alina said quietly. No matter what, he knew it. I could hear respect in Igor's voice and admired you for it. He said that you, the strongest woman he's ever met. Hanging up, Alina went to the window. In the yard, Matvey was kicking a ball with neighborhood boys. Timofey was sitting on a bench with a book, and Anna was enthusiastically chatting about something with her friends, usual Sunday. Nothing has changed, and at the same time, everything has changed. Now their lives are divided into before and after. Before, the truth about the father, and after it. I wonder how their fate would have turned out if Mikhail had not passed away 30 years ago. If only they were. Happier, or perhaps more unhappy. What would she have become? A housewife in the shadow of a successful husband, or did she find it anyway? Would you go your way? History does not know the subjunctive mood. There is only what happened and how we feel about it. And Alina decided for herself a long time ago, you can't live in the past. We can only learn from it and move on. Her children received an unexpected inheritance and the truth about their origins. But they had long had the most valuable legacy. Strength of spirit, the ability to love, endurance in the face of difficulties, all that. What their mother, who never abandoned them, taught them. 3 months have passed since the day when the lives of Elena and the triplets burst into the news of Michael's death and an unexpected inheritance. Life seemed to be back to normal, but something elusive changed. Children began to ask questions about their father more often, look at old photos, sometimes even argue about who they are more like, their mother or the never-seen name of their father. An apartment on Chisty Prudy was decided. Do not touch it yet, do not rent, do not sell, do not move there. They just rarely came with the whole family. Ventilate, water the flowers. Anna insisted on buying a few large plants to liven up the space sometimes, stayed for the weekend. The children gradually settled in unusually spacious rooms, brought their things there, books, CDs with music. Elena was also in no hurry to spend money from the account left by Mikhail. On Igor's advice, who had become something of a family financial advisor, she transferred most of the amount to long-term deposits in the name of her children. The rest was saved for education. Timofey was already talking about entering a prestigious physics and mathematics school. Anna dreamed of the conservatory, and Matvey dreamed of a sports camp in Spain. On that July evening, they returned to apartment after a walk along Chistoprudny Boulevard. The children scattered to their rooms to explore new possessions, and Elena settled down on the balcony with a cup of tea. From the open window came the sound of a piano. Anna was learning a new play. A phone call interrupted the peaceful idyll. Alina slowly approached the device. Hello, this is the Savliev's apartment? Asked an unfamiliar female voice with a slight accent. No, you made a mistake, Alina automatically replied, getting ready to hang up. For the second time in recent months, she was called by the surname of her ex-husband. Wait, cried the voice. I am looking for the family of Mikhail Savliev. I was told that his children could be here. Alina tensed. Who are you? My name is Eileen, the voice said. I am the daughter of Michael, his youngest daughter. Alina felt the room sway before her eyes. She sank down on the nearest table, gripping the receiver tightly. Excuse me, what did you say? I understand that this is a shock for you. The voice on the other end of the line sounded uncertain. For me, too. I learned about the existence of my brothers and sister only after my father's death from his diaries. Hang on. Alina tried to collect her thoughts. You say that you are Mikhail's daughter. From whom? From his second wife, Natalia, the girl answered. I'm 16. I was born and raised in Istanbul. Alina was silent, trying to comprehend what they have heard. Mikhail had another daughter, 4 years younger than the triplets, a child about whom Igor did not say anything. Where are you now? She asked at last. In Moscow, answered. Eileen, I came a week ago to find you. Uncle Igor helped me with the address. Igor, Alina was surprised, but he said nothing. I asked him not to speak, the girl quickly replied. I wanted to think about everything first. You see, this is also news to me. I always thought that I was my father's only child. Where are you staying? Alina asked, digesting the information. At the hotel near the Kirch station, Eileen answered. I didn't know how you would react, so I didn't dare to call, but today I plucked up the courage. Alina took a deep breath. Another twist in this difficult story. Another secret that surfaced after Mikhail's death. Eileen, you are you. Can you come to us tomorrow? She suggested. I think the children should learn about the existence of a sister. Really? The girl's voice was a mixture of disbelief and joy. Do you mind? It's not for me to decide, Alina answered honestly. But I believe that they have the right to know. They agreed to meet the next day. Hanging up, Alina sat motionless for a while, looking at the space. Then she got up resolutely and went to look for the children. The triplets took the news of their sister's existence with varying degrees of enthusiasm. Timothy, as always reasonable, noted that this was logical. The father could have had other children. Matvey expressed restrained interest, asking if she played football. And Anna, after a momentary shock, burst into a stream of questions. How? She looks like what language she speaks, what she loves, what her hobbies are. We will find out tomorrow, Alina smiled. She's coming to visit us. Does she look like us? Asked Anna. I don't know, honey. Alina shook her head. I haven't seen her yet. At night, Alina almost did not sleep. I tossed and turned on the sofa in the living room, trying to imagine what Mikhail's daughter looked like from another woman. There was no anger. Too much water has flowed under the bridge to be jealous of a woman who has already died. There was curiosity and something like excitement, as if tomorrow she was to look into an alternative version of the past, to see what her own daughter could have been like if Mikhail had not left then in 93. In the morning, Alina got up earlier than usual and began to cook. Pie with apples, children's favorite, salad, cutlets, house, filled with the aromas of pastries and fried onions. Aunt Zina, who was watching her fuss, only shook her head. Nervous. So, Alinushka, girl, don't be afraid, Don. Don't look at him coming. I'm not nervous. Alina waved her hand off, although her hands treacherously trembled when she rolled out the dough. I just want everything to go well, and rightly so, she nodded. Aunt Zina, it is not the child's fault that the father is like this. She stopped, searching for a word. In general, she is not to blame. Eileen arrived exactly at the appointed time. At 2:00 in the afternoon, the doorbell caught the whole family gathered. The children, unusually quiet and alert, were sitting in the living room. Elena checked the table setting for the last time. Aunt Zina, nervously adjusting the lace napkin on the chest of drawers. Timofey opened the door. On the threshold stood a fragile girl with long, dark hair and light blue eyes, remarkably similar to the eyes of triplets. In appearance, she could be given, 14 and 18. That very transitional age when girls can look both teenagers and quite adults in. Dependence on mood and circumstances. Hello, she said with a slight accent. I am Eileen. Hello, Timofey smiled awkwardly. I am Timofey, one of your brothers. He stepped aside, letting the girl into the apartment. In the corridor, she was met by Alina. Welcome. Eileen. Come in, don't be shy. The girl held out a bouquet of wild flowers. This is for you. Thank you for agreeing to meet. An awkward silence filled the living room. Everyone looked at each other, not knowing where to start the conversation. Eileen looked embarrassed, but carried herself with dignity. She was wearing a simple summer dress. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail, no makeup. Only thin silver. Bracelet on the wrist. So you're from Turkey? Anna was the first to break the silence. And how do you speak Russian so well? Mom was Russian, Eileen replied. Artist. She moved to Istanbul when she married her father. But at home we always spoke Russian, she believed. It is important that I know my native language. And what about the Turkish one? Matvey asked. I know too, Eileen smiled. And English. In Istanbul, I studied at an international school. And what are you doing here? Timothy asked directly. I mean, why did you come to Moscow? Eileen lowered her eyes. After my father's death, I found his diaries. He wrote a lot about you, about how he regrets not seeing you grow, about how proud he is of your success. She was silent for a moment. I didn't know I had brothers and a sister. Dad never told me. And Mom too, Anna asked. Mom died 3 years ago, Eileen replied quietly. Car crash. Since then, my dad and I have lived together. Well, and with Aunt Fatima, his housekeeper, and then Dad got sick. Her voice trembled, and Alina hastened to intervene. Let's go to the table. I cooked dinner. Let's talk over food. There is a little atmosphere at the table, discharged. Eileen tasted Russian dishes with visible pleasure, praised the pie, and looked at it with interest. Photos on the walls. And what are you going to do next? Asked Timothy. Eileen shook her head. I don't know. I have no one left there. Aunt Fatima returned to her. Village after the death of his father. Our house was sold for debts. Dad spent a lot on treatment. Now I live on money, which she saved up by working part-time as an English tutor. But they will not last long. And what about the inheritance? Surprised, Matvey. Dad left us an apartment and money. Matvey, Alona pulled him away. Nothing. Eileen smiled weakly. I know about the inheritance. Uncle Igor told me, but it's only for you. In the diary, Dad. He wrote that this is his way to somehow compensate for the fact that he did not participate in your life, and he took care of me during his lifetime. And what are you planning? Asked Alina. I wanted to enter an art institute like my mother, Eileen replied. But for this you need citizenship, and I only have a Turkish passport. Mom did not have time to register for me. Russian. Show me your works. Anna perked up. You draw, don't you? Eileen nodded and took a small album out of her bag. Everyone bent over him, looking at him. Watercolor landscapes, pencil sketches, several portraits. One of them immediately attracted Alina's attention. Medium man. Years with a tired but kind face. Mikhail, aged with early gray hair on his temples, but undoubtedly him. It's Dad, Eileen said quietly. A year before the illness, the triplets silently looked at the portrait of a person they had never seen, but with whom they had been, are bound by ties of blood. You are very talented, Alina said sincerely, turning the pages of the album. Your Mom would be proud. Thank you, Eileen smiled shyly. After lunch, the children gradually got used to each other. Anna dragged Eileen to her room, show a collection of CDs and plush toys. The boys stayed away at first, but then Matvey called Eileen too. A table football match, and Timothy offered to teach her how to play chess. Watching them, Alina felt a strange peace. These 4 children, born from the same father, but raised in different conditions in different countries, found a common language for a matter of hours, as if the blood bond was stronger than all barriers and differences. In the evening, when Eileen was about to leave, Alina took her aside. Where are you staying? In a hostel near. Station, the girl answered. It's inexpensive there and the room is clean. I want to offer you something slowly, said Alina. We have an apartment on Chisty Prudy, the same one that Mikhail left. We almost never go there. If you want, you can live until you decide what to do next. Eileen stared at her with widened eyes. You offer me to live in my father's apartment, but why? You don't even know me. I see kind eyes and a sincere soul, she simply replied. Alina. And then you're my children's sister. That's reason enough to help you. But I cannot accept such help. Eileen shook her head. It's too generous. Then consider it not a help, but an invitation. Alina smiled. The children are already attached to you, especially Anna. She had always dreamed of a sister. You'll be more comfortable seeing them if you live nearby. After some, Eileen hesitated. The triplets greeted the news with enthusiasm. Anna was especially happy. Super. I will come to visit you every day. We can cook together, watch movies, braid each other's hair. Hey, easy, Alina laughed. Let the man get used to it. Nothing, Eileen smiled. I like this idea. I've always wanted to have a sister. The next day, Alona helped Eileen move the few things to the apartment on Chisty Prudy. The girl gasped when she saw spacious rooms, high ceilings, huge windows. It's all my father. Now this is home for you, Alina said softly, at least for a while. Eileen walked around the apartment, touching things that once belonged to her father. Books on the shelves, paintings on the walls, framed photographs. I stopped in front of a picture of a young couple against the background of the sea. Mikhail and a blonde woman with delicate features. These are mine. Parents, she said quietly. On the wedding day, Alina came closer, looking at the woman who had become the second, Michael's wife. Natalia was beautiful with a kind of fragile, refined beauty. In her bright eyes, one could read intelligence and a hidden sorrow. You look like her, Alina remarked. The same eyes, the same line of cheekbones. Everyone says so, Eileen nodded. But in character, I am more like my father. Stubborn, sometimes hot-tempered. Alina smiled, remembering Mikhail in his youth, his passion, his ability to light up with ideas, his impatience. You know, she said, helping Eileen sort things out, I think your father would be glad you found your brothers and sister. That you met? Do you really think so? Eileen asked hopefully. Sometimes it seems to me that he deliberately hid them from me. Existence. Maybe he was ashamed of his act. Perhaps. Alina nodded. But I think it's not just that. Sometimes. It is difficult for people to combine different parts of their lives, especially if these parts are associated with pain, with mistakes, with regret. They fell silent, each thinking about her own thing. Outside the window, the summer city was noisy. People were walking along the boulevard. Somewhere in the distance, music was playing. Thank you, Eileen said suddenly, for not sending me away, for letting me know each other. With brothers and sister. Could you hate me for this apartment? After all, I am a reminder that my father lived a different life, was happy with another woman. Hatred. Too heavy a feeling to waste your life on it. Alina shook her head. Besides, you don't. Which is not to blame. Why should I hate a child just for who his parents are? She was silent for a moment, and then added, You know, Eileen, I think it's all happening for a reason. Maybe your appearance in our lives is. A chance for all of us. A chance to understand something important about the past, about yourself, about what a real family is, in the evening. Returning home, Alina found the children in an unusually high mood. They were discussing something vigorously, falling silent when she entered the room. What's going on? She asked, noticing their conspiratorial looks. Nothing innocent, replied Matvey. Just talking. Uh-huh, Alina chuckled skeptically. And I, then, was born yesterday, and I don't know what children who are plotting a prank look like. This is not a prank, Timofey said seriously. We think Eileen should live with us. What? Alina was surprised. Well, not with us in this apartment, of course, Anna explained, but in that one on Chisty Prudy. But they are completely temporary. And we could move there, too. There is enough space for everyone. You, us, Aunt Zinya, Eileen, each will have our own room. Alina sank into a chair, stunned by such a turn. But we decided to leave everything as it is for now, and then you completely. You don't know Eileen. She's practically a stranger. She's our sister, Timofey said firmly, even though it is a composite one, and she has nowhere to go. She has no home, no family, and we have both. In addition, she is cool, Matvey added. He knows a lot of languages, draws, even plays a little football. And she's sad, Anna said quietly. I saw how she looked, in the photo of the parents. She's lonely, Mom. She needs a family. Alina looked at her children with amazement and pride. When did they manage to become so wise, so sensitive to someone else's pain, when they learned to see in an unknown girl from, not a rival, not a stranger, but a kindred spirit in need of support? We'll think about it, she said at last. Now Eileen needs time to settle in, to decide what she wants, and for all of us to get to know each other better. But the idea is good, very good. That night, Lying awake on her sofa, Alina thought about bizarre twists and turns, fate, about how the man who caused her so much pain 30 years ago now, after death, unwittingly became the cause of new connections, new relationships, about how his children, both from her and from another woman, found each other and, it seems, are ready to become a real family. Perhaps this was some higher meaning. Maybe all that happened, and Mikhail's betrayal and the years of struggle for survival and the current unexpected inheritance were part of some larger plan, a plan in which 4 children born from the same father, but raised in different worlds. One day they will unite and create something new, beautiful. Elena did not know the answers to these questions, but closing eyes, she felt a strange peace for the first time in a long time. It was as if something that had long remained unfinished had finally found its solution. "Mom, keep it equal. This will not make a good shot." Anna took the camera from Alina and, squinting, pointed it. "The lens is on a noisy group at a set table." One and all. "Timothy, move closer to Eileen. Matvey, straighten your back. And Zina, smile." The summer day turned out to be unusually warm and sunny, as if nature itself decided to rejoice together, with a large family gathered on the spacious veranda of a country house. This house is 2-story, with an attic and a large garden. They bought it 5 years ago with the money raised from the sale of an apartment on Chisty Prudi. Family nest, as a joke. Called it Alina, a place where the whole family could gather on weekends and holidays. Today was a special day, the 30th anniversary of the birth of triplets. 30 years since the day when Elena first heard 3 children's screams in the operating room, and 16 years since the day Eileen appeared in their lives. "Ready?" Anna announced, looking through the resulting picture. "It turned out great. Let me see." Timothy, now a tall man in thin-rimmed glasses, leaned over the camera screen. Not bad, although you again. I took too wide an angle." "But everyone fits," Anna retorted, "and we will leave your artistic portraits for another time." Alina smiled, watching the usual squabble. Some things don't change, even when children grow up and become adults. However, outwardly they have changed almost beyond recognition. Timofey is now a doctor of physical and mathematical sciences, a teacher at Moscow State University, with a neat beard and a thoughtful look. Matvey is athletic, a coach with impressive shoulders and an eternal tan, who recently returned from a sports camp in Spain, where he worked with a children's football team. Anna is elegant, with a short haircut and bright lips, a successful music producer who just launched own label, and Eileen, a world-renowned artist. Her works were exhibited in galleries in Moscow, Istanbul, Paris. Thin, with long hair gathered in a careless bun, in a simple linen dress and with the invariable silver bracelet on the wrist. For 16 years she has become a real member of the family. At first I lived in an apartment on Chisty Prudi alone. Then the triplets moved in with her, and a year later Elena and Aunt Zina. Eileen received Russian citizenship. I entered the Art Institute, found my way in life, and all this time the brothers and sister were there. Supported, helped, rejoiced at its success. And I say that pork ribs need to be marinated first, and then bake. Matvey's base came from the other end of the veranda. He argued with Igor, a friend of Mikhail's, who over the years had become, for the family, someone like a distant relative. Now Igor, already completely gray but still fit. He was intently turning the meat on the grill, brushing off Matvey's advice. "Leave him alone," laughed Alina, Matvey's wife, a petite brunette with lively brown eyes. "Give a man." "Fry the meat calmly." Alina looked around the audience. In addition to children, there were their second halves here. Alina is Matvey's wife with their 5-year-old son, Nikita. Victor is Anna's husband, a musician and composer. Svetlana, Timofey's fiancée, his colleague at the university. Only Eileen came alone. Her marriage to a Turkish diplomat lasted only 3 years and ended in a peaceful separation. Aunt Zina, who had recently turned 102 years old, was sitting in a rocking chair in the shade of a spreading apple tree. Despite age, she retained clarity of mind and liveliness of character. Next to her sat little Nikita, listening with enthusiasm. Another story from its rich past. "What are you thinking about?" Eileen sat down next to Alina, holding out a glass. Chilled wine. "About how everything has changed," Alina smiled. "And at the same time it remained the same." "I understand." Eileen nodded. "Sometimes it seems to me that I have always known you, that other life. In Istanbul with Dad and Mom. Never was, and sometimes I wake up and forget for a second where I am and what has become of me." They were silent for a moment, watching. bustle around the festive table. What do you think? Asked Eileen suddenly. Dad could have foreseen that we would find each other, that I would become part of your family. Alina shook her head thoughtfully. I don't know. Perhaps deep down he hoped so, but most likely, I was just afraid that after his death you would be left all alone. I often think about what he was like, Eileen admitted. He was just my dad, sometimes strict, sometimes cheerful, always busy with work. But the guys talk about it, as a person who abandoned his family, and you hardly talk about him at all because I have almost nothing to do. To say, Alina shrugged her shoulders. The man I knew 30 years ago and the man who raised you. It's like two different people. The first was young, ambitious, but weak in spirit. The second, judging by your stories, has become wiser, more responsible. He talked a lot about his mistakes, Eileen said quietly, especially in the last year when he was ill. He said that there are things that cannot be fixed, but can at least be admitted. I think he was right, Alina nodded. Admitting mistakes. This is already half the way to correcting them. Their conversation was interrupted by the clinking of a glass. Timothy attracted the attention of the audience. Friends, family, he began when everyone had calmed down. Today, my brother and sister and I turned 30 years old, as many as 3. Decades. For some, this is a lot. For others, it is not enough. He smiled, looking at Aunt Zena. But for us, this is first of all an occasion to get together and say thank you to the people who made us who we are. He raised a glass to his mother, who raised 3 children alone, without giving up, without becoming bitter, who taught us that the real strength is not in not falling, but in getting up after each fall. Everyone raised their glasses, and Timothy continued. Aunt Zena, who became our second grandmother, taught us to bake the best pies and told so many stories that they are enough for a whole book. Aunt Zena waved her hand in embarrassment, but it was clear that she liked the toast. Matthew picked up our sister Eileen, which once appeared in our lives and made it richer, brighter, and more interesting, which showed us that family is not only those with whom you grew up, but also those whom you choose with your heart. Eileen smiled, wiping away a tear, and added Anna for the father whom we had never known, but without whom we would not have existed, who had made many mistakes, but at the end of his life he found the strength to admit them, which left us not only a material inheritance, but also a chance to get to know each other, to become a real family. Elena looked at her daughter in surprise. Never before had the triplets raised a toast to their father. It was a kind of taboo, an unspoken agreement not to think about him at such moments. But it seems that time passed, the wounds dragged on, and the children were finally able to find in their hearts, if not forgiveness, then understanding. For Mikhail, she said quietly. She raises her glass. For our mistakes to teach us, they define us. After lunch, when the main fun subsided a little, Elena went for a walk in the garden. Behind the apple avenue, there was a small pond surrounded by willows, her favorite place for reflection. Sitting down on a bench at the water, she thought about how bizarre life was. 30 years ago, when she found Mikhail's note, she was sure that her life is destroyed forever, that happiness, well-being, simple joys, all this is no longer for her. And today she has 3 beautiful children who have become worthy people. An adopted daughter whom she loves no less than her own, a grandson who loves grandmother's fairy tales, Aunt Zena, who, despite her age, remains the core of their large family. Favorite job? She still runs a network of private schools, which she once started with Elena Pavlovna. Cozy home, where guests are always welcome. But what about his personal life? Did she have a chance to create a new family, to find a life partner? Of course there were. And Sergei from the neighboring kindergarten, and Viktor Ivanovich, who helped with housing, and even Igorin. For a moment, he showed obvious interest in her, but each time something stopped her. Not fear or resentment against Michael. She has outgrown it a long time ago. Rather, there is a feeling that her path should be just like that. What is her calling? To be a mother, to be a support for your children, and then for their children. And yet, sometimes, in such quiet moments alone, she wondered if she had missed something important. Wasn't it worth the risk, to open? Heart, allow yourself to fall in love again? There you are. Aunt Zena's voice rang out behind my back. The old woman approached slowly, leaning on her cane. Left, without telling anyone. Children are worried. I just wanted to be alone for a while. Alina smiled, moving to make room on the bench. Think. What is it about? Aunt Zena sat down next to her with a scruff. About life, about the choices that we make, about the roads we didn't take. Aunt Zena nodded understandingly. It's normal to look back when children have grown up, to think that it could have been otherwise. But you know what I'll tell you. Alyanushka? There are no right or wrong roads. There are only those that we choose and those that remain unpassed. And yet, sighed Alina, sometimes I think, what if I still tried to arrange my personal life? Gave. Chance for a good person I would not be left alone. And who said that you are alone? You have 4 children, grandson, me in the end. What loneliness it is. Alina laughed. You're right, as always. It's just that sometimes it rolls in, such a strange melancholy, because there was none. It's called the empty nest crisis, said the aunt instructively. Zena, when the children have grown up and it seems that your mission is accomplished. But this is not true. There's so much more to come. Grandchildren, great-grandchildren, new projects. Life is just beginning, Alyanushka. At 63 years old? With, Elena asked with a smile. And I can still dance at the age of 102. Well, if you give me a good shake. They laughed and Aunt Zena, suddenly becoming serious, took Elena by the hand. Do you know what I wish you most? So that you never regret about your path, about your decisions, because they made you the amazing woman you have become and whom I am proud of as my own daughter. Elena felt a lump rise to her throat. Thank you for everything. Now let's go. Aunt Zena resolutely. Rose. There, Nikita is going to show a trick with the disappearance of a coin. You don't want to miss it. Returning to the house, Alina heard laughter coming from the veranda. Her children, their life partners, little Nikita, trying to hold the attention of an adult audience. They were all there, waiting for her, loving her. And suddenly, with a crystal, with clarity, she understood that her life had turned out exactly as it should have been. Not better and not worse, but exactly as it should be. All the trials, all the losses, all the victories, it was all part of her unique journey. The path that brought her here, to this moment, to this fullness of being. 30 years ago, when Mikhail took all the money and he left with his mistress, she thought that life was over. And today, looking back, she saw that it was only beginning. The beginning of a path that turned out to be much more interesting, richer, and more significant than life could have been. An ordinary housewife in the shadow of her husband. There was still a whole life ahead of him. New joys, new trials, new discoveries, and she is. I was ready to meet them with an open heart and gratitude to fate for everything that has been, and everything that will still be. Climbing the steps of the veranda, Elena smiled. Life went on, and it was wonderful, if you liked this. History, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support inspires us to delight you with new and exciting stories every day. On the home screen, you can already find our next story. We wish you all the best and happiness in life.